Hey everybody, welcome to Seller Basics first roundtable. We're going to start doing these quarterly and just have various influencers in the Amazon community. I've got some special guests. We've got obviously Paul Rafelson from Rafelson Law and also owner of Seller Basics. We've got Leron Hirschkorn of Incrementum Digital, and we've also got Brandon Young of Seller Systems and Data Dive. We're going to go 45 minutes to an hour at the most. We're going to cover three topics today. They need to be talked about, in my opinion. One is what a recession might look like for this community. However you want to look at it, maybe we're going through it right now, maybe we're not. It depends on what TV channel you're watching these days. But what would it look like if it got really bad? Also, in lines with that is mitigating profit loss for 2023. Changes are rapidly happening within the economy, but also in Amazon and also e-commerce in general. Points. And then finally, talking a little bit about why your Q4, why your books shouldn't end December 31st. Paul, I'm going to let everybody do intros and then we'll get started with the first topic.
Okay. So my name is Paul Rafelson. I'm a founder of Seller Basics, and I run the Rafelson Law Firm, which is a network law firm as part of Seller Basics. So we're one of the lawyers you work with. I've been in the Amazon legal space for 5 years. Most of you probably already know me. Our law firm does everything from business, tax, corporate law, and we love working on exits because that's like the happiest thing our clients get to do, and it makes us happy when our clients are happy. So we love that. And with that, I will kick it off to Brandon. Brandon, not that you need it, neither of you need an introduction, but just for that one person who may just started on Amazon today, let's hear about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm Brandon Young. My wife and I started selling on Amazon in 2015. We started private label in 2016. We've built up about 5 active brands that did 22 million last year. We started teaching in 2018 with a company called Seller Systems, where we teach what we learned from doing it ourselves. And then we created a software called Data Dive, which we launched out of beta last year, where we automate what we teach, and then our team uses it. So we've got quite a few businesses going on, but it's all related.
Awesome. And another person who needs zero introduction, but except if somebody just started selling on Amazon yesterday, they may need one. So Leron, for that one person who just started yesterday, please tell us about who you are.
Sure. Thank you. Leron Hirschkorn. I've been in the Amazon space since 2014. Started out with arbitrage, then wholesale, then private label. Sold one brand to a competitor and then focused more on agency side of the business. So today we work with about 150 clients, managing their advertising, optimizing their listings, and doing also some seller operations and work there. And yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'll just say I've worked with Paul personally on a lot of legal things, and can't recommend him enough.
That's so nice of you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We have a lot of fun working with you, Leron. We absolutely do. It's always a good. So jumping into sort of
Usually
our first
when you
topic,
need a lawyer, it's not a good time. So
let me tell you, Brandon,
that says a lot.
Let me tell you, Brandon, it was not a good time, but Paul got me out of a mess, and it became a good time.
Okay. A better time for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And we like to think, like I said, that I agree with you, Brandon. Nobody ever wants to hire a lawyer. That's why we try to make it a little bit manageable and the cost. That's why we love exits, because it's, like I said, it's really the one time where your client's kind of happy. So it's nice. It's a nice change of pace. When somebody's calling you up and their account's suspended and they're losing their mind, that's never exciting. That's just we move, but it's just sad.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's take a little bit conversation. I don't think it's happened enough. I was just kind of curious. This is a curiosity that started obviously back in December, but yeah, the signals out there in the economy are there's still this risk of a recession, depending on who you ask. And to me, it's interesting because so many of our clients are so young. This may actually be the first, if there is any recession or slowing of growth or in any way, and a trickling effect from unemployment, whatever happens, like this is the first one for a lot of Amazon sellers. For a lot of Amazon sellers, they were probably too young to remember the financial crisis of 2008. So how does a recession affect Amazon, in your opinion, or how do the trends in the macro environment affect Amazon from what you're seeing? Anyone wants to jump in on that?
You jump in, Brandon.
All right. It's such a paradox because everyone was like this giant recession to start taking. The Fed has just announced that they feel like that we're now in a deflationary state. So they've announced that they're going to be raising rates a little bit less than what was expected. The stock market reacted really well. And then on top of that, instead of only adding 100,000 jobs, which would have been basically adding to unemployment, we added 500,000 jobs. which lowered unemployment to 50-year lows. So when someone says recession, I'm wondering what's going to happen. Are we really ever going to, are we in a recession? Are we not going to be in a recession? It's less likely at this point based on these most recent numbers, but I would say that there's a chance that we start to have some inflation come back and the Fed starts to raise rates more aggressively again, which they want people to lose their jobs. As sad as that is, or as ridiculous as it is, if everyone is employed, and there's right now, I think 1.9 jobs available for every one person that can work in the country that doesn't have a job, so they want people to lose their jobs and to have less money in the economy, which would lower inflation or the risk of inflation. I don't know what's going to happen, man. I think that so what ends up happening is people travel less, they buy less luxurious goods, but they still continue to buy goods that they need, groceries, things to clean themselves, maintenance items. And so discount stores do well, luxury stores do poor, certain sectors do well, certain sectors do poorly. Retail businesses suffer and go out of business because they can't stay in business with low margins. And that leads to more people shopping online. So even if consumer spending goes down, I think e-commerce will continue to rise, and I think Amazon continues to lead e-commerce. So I don't know that it's going to impact Amazon sellers outside of a couple really small niches that would be impacted. That's just my thinking.
So luxury-based goods, and I'm glad you said that.
Travel and luxury maybe is where I would say you might see a small downturn in demand, but not even like a significant one. If people are working and making money, until we see like a true recession where the Fed rips rates up higher and like a bunch of people lose their jobs, a bunch of people go out of business, then people are still going to be making money and they're still going to travel.
I'm glad you said that, because I think that that's something really important people have to understand that's going on. I don't know if it's fully understood. The Fed sees the current employment environment and wage growth as the kind of the root cause of inflation right now. So they're trying to curb inflation by curbing wage growth and curbing employment. Like you said, they want people to lose their jobs. They've said that out loud, right? This is their intent, right? They're trying to slow this thing down. I've seen Liz Warren.
Yeah, it's all you poor working folk.
This.
It's your fault for finally getting some money. You bastards.
Right. Yeah. Somebody gets a little break once in a while and it's like, yeah, now we got to punish them. We can't have that. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it is. The Fed is the factor here. It's what are they doing? And is this what we should be doing at this point in time? A lot of inflationary factors have come down for Amazon sellers, right? Look at the cost of container. Cost of container this time last year was insane. I've heard 22, 30,000, right? Now I heard last week it's back. Was it maybe under 3?
It's definitely under 3,000 to the West Coast.
Yeah. To the West Coast, and then I heard it's a little over. Yeah, I heard it was maybe like 25 for New York or something. It's substantial. It's 10% of what it was so many years ago, and that affected so many people's earnings. So I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens, and if the Fed just goes overboard and really does hurt the economy, then we may be in a different situation. Leon, what are your thoughts? What have you seen in the marketplace?
One, we've been talking about this anticipated recession since August, right? July, August, like for a long time now. And we so far have not seen the impact of it. And like Brandon said, a lot of our clients are selling products between $25 and $75, right? That's like a big chunk of a lot of Amazon sellers, not luxury items. Amazon is not a luxury marketplace. And so I think it's likely to be less impacted than anything else. So as a seller, I wouldn't be overly concerned about the economy. However, there are things that we're doing in our business that I think you can also translate into e-commerce business. This is probably not the year to make like a wild bet or risky bet on something. If you're selling in the US, maybe you wouldn't be investing a lot to go to UK, for example, but maybe you'd work on investing in your existing products, like making them better, improving design, adding variations, investing in tools, investing in coaching and learning, right? Like you would invest in the things that are more likely to give you like a better or more sure return on your investment than some things that may be unsure. And that's, you look at your business and look at your finances and see, do I have too many people on my team? Can I cut costs somewhere and still do the same amount of business and grow? Just be more financially responsible this year and that's what we're doing in our business. We're not going to launch 10 new services and test things that we don't know if they're going to work or not and invest in them, but we still are investing in technology and tools to make our client experience better, for example, right? Again, you can translate that into a product, improve your products, read the reviews, add variations, right? Imagine that's a kind of advice, Brandon, you'd be thinking as far as, and then, yeah, and maybe this is not the year
I'm much more bullish than that.
Okay.
I really don't think, I think when everyone is cautious is the time for you to jump. Like right now, when everyone's scared, you should be excited. This is the time to really start doing product research and launching into new categories that you don't think will be too overly impacted. I can tell you I'm launching 3 new brands this year. I launched over 150 new products last year. I might only do 100 this year because a couple of the categories I'm getting into are far more expensive. But I'm also launching into Walmart and being very aggressive with mine into Walmart. I think I can add 25% to my top line by simply just adding that platform. And now the exciting part about that is that Walmart does well during recessions. It's a discount store, right? People are used to shopping at Walmart. They're going to shop on walmart.com. The traffic is significantly increasing over time. And now that they have a fulfillment service, the supply chain is basically the same as it is for FBA for me. So I can make that, it's very easy for my team to adjust to add that marketplace. That's going to add a minimum of 25% to my top line.
Would you say though that your downside risk, and if all of it blew up, your business would still be okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wouldn't be going out of business or in a really bad...
I don't think the fundamentals and the keyword research and the data is going to change significantly even in a down economy. And I think I would have enough time to pivot if something significant happens, like that's worse than we expect.
And I imagine that you're also not highly leveraged or maybe need to borrow a ton to be able to grow in those areas, right? Yeah, I guess from that perspective, I would say it really depends, right, on your business, how much profits you have and what you can sustain and what size you are, right? If I'm a seller doing $1 million a year, I have less profits in my business and I need to be probably more cautious. If I'm doing 15,
and this year you should do 3 million.
What's that?
And this year you should do 3 million.
Yeah, and look, I don't think the economy is an excuse for, and that's maybe
stagnation, right?
It's not an excuse for lack of growth because every seller out there has how much percent of the market that you're in do you have? And so you can always get better. There's always opportunity to improve and take market share, even if the market is shrinking or staying the same or growing less. When I look at agency, for example, right? Okay, maybe it's going to be a bad economy, but I have 0.0000000 of the brands that are available that I can potentially work with. If we do a good job, we'll be able to grow, right? If you put out good products, if you improve, if you provide a good customer experience, if you understand the keyword side and how to market and what products to go after, then you can go and get market share, even if there isn't that level of 100%. Growth. I think you never want to externalize the economy's bad, so it's an excuse for me to give myself a big excuse for not growing the business. You want to focus on the things you can control and on not utilizing anything external as an excuse. And I think as entrepreneurs, you have to have that kind of mindset.
What do you think about moving into the second topic a little bit, but I think it's going to dominate the rest of this conversation, cost management. So there is some inflation. There is some, those of us who hire have to deal with wage inflation. There's been some deflationary elements such as the shipping like we talked about earlier. What about advertising? This is going to sound silly, but there's been some talk that maybe PPC has become more of a crutch than a tool for some. And people are looking for, at a conference, somebody talks about micro-influencer strategies. And then I hear, I hired a micro-influencer and they got me 1 sale. What good was this? Obviously, you both have unique perspectives. What do you think the strategies are for getting more market share without ruining your bottom line? How do you do that these days?
The first thing is that I haven't had any of our clients that said, hey, you know what? By the way, I stopped working with you 2 months ago. We stopped all our PPC. We hired some micro-influencers and boy, that was a great decision, right? Because at the end of the day, that's not reality at all. Unfortunately, for a lot of people, if you stop advertising, you're going to see a decline in your sales on Amazon. Some are more fortunate where they could do that and they have really good organic positions and they could do that. Their business will probably take a hit as a result. But if you have a ton of branded searches, if you're known outside of Amazon, you may be in position. Most private label sellers are not in the position to stop advertising. Could you cut back? Yes. There is a point of spending too much. There is a threshold. You need to have a certain percentage of your sales coming from organic in order to have healthy business. But as we were talking, I was looking at some of our numbers, and in 2021, the average tacos, which is the total advertising spend compared to total sales, was like at 13.1 or 2%. And I'm looking at it now from January 1st to February 9th. It's this year, it's 13.7% across our clients. And there's a lot of spend and revenue there. So it's a decent amount. Of course, there's some clients, some bigger brands there that may bring down that number. But I think you can still have a healthy business with spending 15% of your sales on advertising. Should you be at 25? No, unless you're really focused on top line revenue growth. You're in a niche where, like a pet supplement niche, where you can sell as a multiple of revenue. You don't need EBITDA, and you should have a mix. Your newer products will have a higher tacos, and your more mature products should have a lower tacos. And you really need to focus on the keyword side, the optimization of your listing side, the conversions, and your organic ranking. Because if you have 65-70% of your sales coming from ads, you're going to have a high tacos. And in those, we see that, by the way. I think you need to have less than, let's say, 55%, less than 60% of your sales coming from PPC. A few years ago, I would have told you it should be less than 50%, but Amazon has made it more challenging. There's less organic positions on the page.
We're shifting the gears a little bit, right? To just to
Amazon.
the new.
Amazon is definitely prioritizing their ad business. They are, in some sense, maybe sacrificing some quality for it, because there's less listings, let's say, that deserve to be there organically. So I think they've made that decision and they're prioritizing their ad business. That's just a reality. But advertising does also help you maintain and potentially increase your organic positions. And with pricing, yeah, we've seen our clients increase pricing. They've had to, especially when shipping rates were $20,000 a container. I'll give you some stats though on thinking about your business. I was looking at a chart recently of actually we do EOS. It's the Entrepreneur Operating System, a playbook for how to run any business. And our coach gave us in January this chart about pricing and margins and how it affects your business. And if you increase your prices by 2% and have an average margin, a net margin, which I think most sellers should have a little bit better, but if you have a net margin of 15%, you can sustain 11.8% less sales and less revenue and still make the same profits, right? So you need to get smart. You need to get smarter about the business. I think if 2020 and 2021 were a masterclass in supply chain and logistics, maybe this is time to have a masterclass in running better operations of a business in order to make sure you have the margins. Amazon advertising is a blessing and a curse together. You can launch a product and be on page 1 the first day, and it's also a necessary evil. It's both, and something you need to deal with as a seller.
Got it. Brandon, you mentioned you're launching 3 brands this year, right? You said 3 or 100? Was it about 3?
Yeah, three new brands.
3 new brands. How are you, kind of going along the same lines of the same questions, how are you going to launch those brands? What are your strategies? Are you going all in on micro influencers? What are we actually going to do?
I hardly use any outside traffic, really. The majority of my ranking strategy revolves around good SEO practices, proper keyword research, writing the listing to maximize signals to Amazon around relevancy, what we call ranking juice, and then lots of traffic and conversions, usually through paid at first and then hopefully organic. Typically when we launch, we're on the first page, top 15 across hundreds of keywords in the first 7 days. And that's generally from just running really effective PPC with a dialed in content, good value. Like, we've tested the design of the product, it's converting, and we've written the listing to maximize the rank potential.
And more aggressive pricing?
Yeah, usually aggressive pricing on launch in order to spike the algorithm with conversion. If it's something that we qualify for really quickly with a lightning deal, what we'll do is we'll do steep coupons, and then we'll run regular deals as well, which again will give you a great blended conversion rate and click-through rate.
I love that ranking juice. That's such a concept. I've never put it into terms. It's probably a very common term, but maybe for those of us who are not on the inside or in the battle.
I think we created it and trademarked it, but
Huh?
Okay, did you really?
Yeah,
it's a cool name. I love it. I was gonna say,
it's a comment. Yeah, it's basically the rank
Actually,
potential based on Amazon's algorithm of how they value match types, and combined with our way of calculating based on broad search volumes of the root words and words in the phrases.
It's actually Brandon. That's one of the products he's launching. It's a ranking juice, and you drink it,
And then your product ranks better.
Yeah.
product ranks better. Yeah, it's one of the launches.
Yeah.
Are we going to do this in partnership with some UFC fighters? How are we going to do this?
Yeah,
You
it
know?
sounds ranking juice. Brandon's
Ranking juice.
not a.
Yeah,
You sell
I
that to
like it.
Amazon sellers at events. It's a good idea.
Ranking juice gives your listing wings. Right? I don't know if we can say that. I think that probably gets in trouble.
Listen, you're the lawyer here. You should probably not give us advice that's going to get us sued.
Okay, we're allowed to have a sense of humor a little bit. Sorry. Yeah, don't do that. Don't say that. So it's interesting. So what people are hearing is it still comes down to the fundamentals haven't really changed all that much in the last few years. It's still the same. So where's the frustration coming from? Go
I
ahead.
would say the fundamentals have become even more important in the last few years because there's less, I would say, black hat, maybe, or gray hat opportunity.
Amazon's definitely cracked down on the effectiveness of black hat, and also been suspending people a lot more liberally for when they detect it. What people don't understand is that Amazon measures every single thing a buyer does. So where their mouse is moving, whether they look at reviews before they add your product to cart, how many competitors they looked at before they went to your listing, how many competitors they added to cart before they added yours to cart, what percentage of people add to cart versus purchase. So every single little thing that they're doing with their mouse and their buying habits and their behavior is measured, and they know what normal is. And if you're outside of a standard deviation of normal, then Amazon knows you're cheating. And so it's impossible for you to know what Amazon thinks is normal and for you to replicate that. So when you cheat, you just get caught, and then they're going to suspend you, and you deserve it.
We do a lot of the exit, merger and acquisition stuff. We did $250 million in 2021 when we had the aggregator bubble representing sellers. And I tell people it's frustrating, but it does come out in the wash. You do have to disclose that stuff, right? Taking a serious risk. If you're going to think somebody's going to pay you millions of dollars without disclosing that you did those things, and that's going to affect the price of your business and what somebody might want to pay for it, it actually scares buyers away because they're afraid that they're going to inherit the risk that one day Amazon's going to retaliate.
A lot of these companies and aggregators got left holding the bag when these accounts got suspended, or the products immediately tanked because the bullshit that the sellers were doing is no longer there. And I think that those people should be sued and face repercussion.
Well, that's why we're not loved by brokers, because the brokers go by this sort of mantra of time kills deals. And we want to disclose everything to mitigate the risk, right? We want to take risk off of our client. We don't want our client to sign a document. We think the buyers are sophisticated. They know what they're getting. If they're scared of it,
there's liability on both ends, though, right? What's happening with that lawsuit where the aggregator is being sued by the seller who lost their earnout?
There's more than one of those, by the way.
There's a lot of those cases lately.
Yeah,
We've seen it.
There's
multiple of those. So the earnouts were lost because they sold the brand to the aggregator. The aggregator immediately changed the marketing strategy, which was propping up and keeping a market share. And then the product tanks. And now the earnout is gone.
Let me give you an example, Brandon. One of our clients sold their brand to an aggregator, and we had obviously helped them grow. We were running the ads. The aggregator took the business in-house, wasn't going well. Then they came to us and they brought it back. After 3 weeks, they said, "Hey, we're putting a 4-month pause on running ads because we're rebranding." Okay, they ended up
what do you want to do?
They ended up shutting down the brand, and now they're getting sued. Pausing all ads for 4 months is killing the brand, right?
But that goes
what
into
kind
how
of
you
buyer
the deal,
enters
though.
the space, raises millions of dollars, and doesn't know that's going to kill the brand?
All these buyers.
That's the issue, Brandon. That's what we saw. We saw buyers that did no due diligence, man. We saw people. We would literally download the USPTO website sometimes and hand over the trademark history on brands and say, "Here, look, there are 3 people think this trademark's a problem," and they would be learning it for the first time. The due diligence on these deals was shockingly bad. It was shockingly bad. They just wanted to see the data. Most of the time lapse between when there was a letter of intent signed and when you got to a contract negotiation, they were just watching the data. They just wanted to see that sales stayed up and trending up.
They were buying cash flow, and they had no idea how the business really works.
No, and when you're a lawyer,
there are better aggregators out there, but it's sad that the majority of them are like what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I think the lesson learned, and I think Liren, we talked about this before, the lesson learned from 2021 is don't get rid of the seller. Keep the seller on board. It's not an exit anymore. It's kind of a journey, right? You got to hang on.
Well,
now. So now,
when you exit to a private equity, or a lot of times when you exit to a company, you have to sign an agreement to stay on for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. That's, of course, hindsight, but in hindsight, that's what the aggregators should have
You know
done.
the real
Well,
reason there, and I don't know if the owner, it's the owner's baby. They're still going to feel a sense of loyalty to it. They're still going to work harder than an average worker. But once they get paid, maybe they don't have that same amount of hustle. But you can't replace someone working 70 hours a week that's an expert in everything. They're basically a unicorn because they had to go from zero to that point. So they know every aspect of the business, every in and out, everything about every product, the supply chain, everything. And then you replace them with one 40-hour work week employee that is just getting into the business. That's never going to work. So that's the obvious.
Who's probably hanging on to 4 or 5 brands. They probably have a portfolio that they're responsible for. So you really, it's replacing one person with 1/5 of a person. You know what I mean? Like a person is at an aggregator is going to have, these are my brands and this is what I'm responsible for. And it may not be enough resources. That's the story they pitch. To me, the deception was always in the advertising, that they actually convince people they were better at this than, which we always told our clients they're not. Like we always said, making money, we always coach around earnouts. We say, look, we'll try, but they're very expensive to fight for too. So if your earnout's not big enough, you're not going to court because it's too expensive. But things like what you said earlier, we've had deals where we've talked to our clients, they're adamant they want the top, they actually put the range of tacos that they have to agree to maintain. Right? Like they can't go below a certain tacos level. I don't pretend to really know what that means. My client explains to us and we put it in work. But we've done that before. I don't know.
You can make the argument that the entire Amazon brand aggregation concept, for one big reason, is very challenging. And the big reason is that these companies said they're the digital Procter and Gamble of today.
Oh, yeah.
What Procter and Gamble's setup is, they start out on the factory side. They start out in the manufacturing side. And then they were able to manufacture things in maybe 1, 2, 3, like consolidate manufacturing of multiple products in one factory.
Economies of scale. That's what you expect,
now,
right?
What the aggregators concept is, everything is located across 500 different factories in different countries. And I'm going to backwards consolidate that now. I'm going to take these products that's made in India and this product that's made in China, we have 100 different factories, and I'm going to try and consolidate that into 10. And that's very challenging. Very challenging. It's the reverse, where the Procter and Gamble's of the world and Unilever's didn't start out with that reverse strategy. They started out already in a consolidated way. As they introduced new brands, they consolidate as much as possible. So the whole theory that there's a ton of efficiencies, and then you don't get the customer emails too from Amazon on top of that. So it's difficult to cross-market products. But the whole thing is, yes, you can run multiple brands, and there's some people that do it better where they have sustainable. They have 5, 6, 7 brands, but they're operators, and their goal is not to consolidate ultimately all the factories and stuff. But that was the pitch, I think, that of why aggregators can run these businesses for less money, when in fact, seller running a $2-3 million business was him and 3 VAs. And the aggregators on average have 10 people per brand on their payroll.
Yeah, absolutely. You couldn't beat the overhead that was coming in with some of these companies, these one single employee-preneurs. You couldn't beat it.
No office.
Right. So, what do you think about? So, let's say I meet a client, right, or somebody who's a member of Seller Basics talks to me, and one or the other, and they're telling me that they're doing their own PPC in this environment. So the first time I really understood PPC, I was at Danny McMillan's event in London. I think you were there, Leon. I think you were speaking. This was like 2018, 2019. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And before that virus thing, if you guys remember that happened a while ago. And it was fascinating. I was sitting there and I'm just watching this presentation. And it's like, you might as well have been speaking a different language, right? So like, I find that people who are really good at PPC are kind of people who might be also good at data science, who are wired a different way. And I just wonder, when you see a client who's, oh, wow, this is a beautiful brand. Like, you have a really good eye. You have a really good creative. Why are you doing your own PPC? What would you say to that person? What would you say to that person if you were trying to say, either of you, we want to work with you? How do you get through to people? Because I do think doing your own PPC is a mistake, unless you happen to be one of those people who is wired like you guys. But I think a lot of people aren't.
I'm not looking to get through to people or convince someone that they shouldn't do their own PPC. There are some people, at the end of the day, it's not rocket science, but it does take dedicated time, perhaps using some tools and staying up to date on what's happening. And being data driven. So if you are running your business and maybe you have 3, 5 products, maybe you have the capacity and the time to do it. You enjoy doing it. You're good at it. and you're happy that you're doing it yourself and saving money, and you have time to do other things in your business, that's not bad. However, number one, a lot of people don't enjoy doing it. They hate it. Okay. Because you're looking at spreadsheets and numbers and things like that. And two, where else could your time be better spent? Again, if you have the time, if you start to get into 5 products, 10 products, you're thinking about product development. How can I make my products better? Finance, operations, supply chain, sourcing, like all these things in your business, marketing, and maybe in other channels. So in that case, you have to also ask yourself, perhaps even if I'm good at it, is my time better spent somewhere else? And then you have the other category of people that are not as good as somebody else that they would hire. And in that case, yeah, you should outsource it. So I would say overall, if you're happy with your results, if you're doing well and it works for you, do it. We'll audit an account and we'll tell you, basically, we'll give you a full audit of the account. And we'll tell you what we think the areas of opportunities are. You can take that and improve it yourself if you want to do that. I wouldn't convince someone not to. It's just a matter of, is it worth your time? And are you good at it? Do you enjoy it? And for me personally, even though I consider myself good at PPC, my favorite part of the business is the product development side, is the creativity of designing something, for example. And so for me, that's why I would rather pay somebody, even though I could do it myself, right? I would rather pay somebody really good. And even if they did 80 or 90% as good as I can myself, that's fine. I rather focus on the things in my business that I really enjoy doing and that I'm good at. And then if you start to get into more products, 10, 15, 20 products, it gets very challenging to have the time to do it yourself.
Brandon, how do I get some of that ranking juice? Again, I'm a client, I'm coming to you. I want that ranking juice. How do I do that? What is the mistake that you commonly see people when they finally throw up their hands and they want to learn? What is that realization? Because I want this message to be to those people. I really, because I see this and I see it from my Shark Tank. I call it my Shark Tank practice because we have a lot of clients who won Shark Tank. And they're like the saddest stories a lot of times, right? It's just like they took the deal, and then Shark Tank didn't care about Amazon 5 years ago. So it wasn't like, so the exception of Scrub Daddy, it's like, there's a lot of Shark Tank stories, winners who just, I don't know, my business just fizzled out. I didn't know about Amazon. And then I find Amazon and there's a million knockoffs. So there are a lot of people out there with great ideas who just don't know how to do the rank. They don't know how to get rankings. So Brandon, what would you say to those people, and how would you connect with them and say, deliver that message that sometimes it's not for you? Sometimes your expertise is the creative. Sometimes there's some people who don't create brands at all, but just know how to play the market and play the data. Where do you come in on this?
My take is that selling on Amazon is 4 different college level degrees and built into one. It's very hard, right? And so this is where people can struggle, but there's no excuse. Like, the education's out there. You can learn. You should always learn every aspect, even if it's hard for you, and you got to work harder than the average person or work harder than the person next to you. You can still work harder and figure it out before you hand it to an agency like Leron's or to someone else to do that part that you don't like or that is hard. So from a product development perspective, I think like the guys that you're talking about that were on Shark Tank that invented something new, it's not always going to work on Amazon. We have to work within the confines of what is searched on Amazon. So you can't create demand on Amazon. You can't create demand on Amazon. So just because you invented a better mousetrap doesn't mean you're going to be able to sell it on the keyword of mousetrap. No one knows what it is. No one knows what it looks like or how it functions, and you can't convey that very easily. So what I would say is, from a product development perspective, you have to work backwards from what is already selling, what keywords people are already using. And then if you have a new design or a new value added, like a product with a new value proposition or a new design, you need to test that design before you go through the trouble of developing the product and shipping it here. And that's the step that a lot of people skip. They don't validate the product properly from a research perspective, keyword perspective, competitor analysis perspective, or design perspective. You need to qualify the product in all of those areas before you decide to do it. So that's the main mistake. The next mistake would be on not spending enough money and on content. So if you don't do better images and your product doesn't look as good as the product next to it on Amazon search results, you won't get as many clicks. And if you don't get as many clicks and you don't sell as many units, you're not going to rank as high as your competitors. Click-through rate, conversion rate, and revenue are the 3 performance metrics for Amazon SEO. The next part is relevancy, which is how you write your listing. So the next mistake is people don't do the keyword research in order to write their listing to maximize the rank potential. They don't know what keywords to prioritize, how to write them, what phrases to use, and in what order, in what match type in order to maximize the rank. The next mistake is on marketing, which is PPC. And what I'll say here is that you have to understand the phases of PPC. You have to understand PPC for launch is different than PPC for growth, which is different than PPC for maintenance. You have to have different objectives around the way you're running your ad campaigns and what you're trying to achieve. So if you think about what PPC is in 60 seconds, it's you generating your ads generating traffic to meet your objective. And you have to understand that your objective is going to change depending on what you want the product to do. Are you just launching it and trying to rank for as many keywords as possible to get a feedback loop that you can feed into to optimize it? Are you then trying to push specific keywords and for growth? How are you going to do that? That's where PPC for growth comes in. And then you have PPC for maintenance, which is maximizing long-term profitability, maintaining keyword ranks, making sure that this is a product that's going to be around for a couple years or however long you can maintain that with periodically refreshing the content. So yeah, Amazon's hard. It's all of those things. It's all of those learning curves. It's college level degrees in every aspect that I just explained, but it's solved, right? And I think people want a shortcut. People want to say that they don't get it and then just give up. And that's fine. Like, I think that the people that are successful are the ones that never give up, that are willing to put in the work, that work their asses off, that figure it out eventually, either through successes, failures, education, being around the right people that are already successful, learning from people that are already successful, or just stumbling through it themselves like we did, just massive failures and massive successes, and then just eventually piecing it all together to figure it out.
One of the best things you could do is hang out with people as and higher level in success than you. That's why I love going to events, networking, meeting people face to face, because I want to spend time with people that are, again, at or above my level.
Yeah. Masterminds were crucial for growth, right? We had failures, we had successes, but getting in a room with other people willing to share that have already been through it, you learn more in that 3 hours of conversation than you will through 6 months of trial and error.
And you run a mastermind now. So now you're in the position where you can help people. You created a forum.
It's the reason I created it. It's 100%
Yeah.
the reason I created it, because I was a co-founder and one of the founding members of MDS. And that was only for people already doing $1 million. And I said, I want to help people that are just starting. I want to help 0 to 8 figures. I don't want to just help 7 and 8 figures. And so when we started teaching, it was the foundational aspects of selling on Amazon are the same whether you're a brand new seller or you're an 8-figure seller. The way you validate a product, the way you launch it, the way you do content, the way you write your listing, the way you do marketing is all the same if you have 1 SKU or 100 SKUs. So what we're teaching at a very high level is good for beginners. Like, I wanted them to be able to be around each other. So now we have 1,000 members and 400 are 7 and 8-figure sellers. 600 are somewhere in between 0 and there.
Awesome. And how can people find you if they want to check out your content and learn more about what you offer, what you do?
Start with my free class. I always try to go to seller-systems.com. I have a free 3-hour masterclass about how we evaluate products and how we do things differently, how we look at data. And then if you want more, like, there's information about the inner circle, the full college level course, the mastermind, and all that. But if you're unsure on whether you're going to sell on Amazon, then, start with the free class. I don't figure out for free whether this business is right for you. I don't want you.
You may be talking to somebody who's unsure, or you may be talking to somebody we've got a broad audience of wholesale, resale, retail arbitrage, and private label and brand, right? So you might be talking to somebody right now who's been in retail arbitrage and has done an amazing job, really knows the Amazon platform from that perspective.
And what's amazing from an arbitrage and resale perspective is that that's a different skill set that you can get really great at. You can build a 7-figure business. It's not as sellable of a business, unfortunately, but it's still a very amazing skill set. But it's still very different than the business I just laid out with private label.
It can help you if you're low on budget. It can help you generate cash flow to then invest.
Yeah, Liron, you've done both. We started with reselling, with the wholesale and liquidation as well. And what we learned didn't really help us, other than we knew how to navigate Amazon's just Seller Central. Outside of that,
Yeah.
we had to figure out keywords and launches and writing and listing building, PPC and
Right.
all that.
Where I think it's going to help you is, yes, really understanding the Amazon ecosystem, not as much, yes, not on the private label side as much, but you'll understand things like BSR, estimated sales, using some of the tools that are there for it, getting the hang of sending shipments, some of the operational stuff of Amazon, and also and how it works. And then and it will help you generate cash flow and quicker cash flow than private label. You may be studying now and think, okay, I'm going to study, I'm going to find a product, get going. It may be 6 months before you launch, right? You want to learn somewhat, then maybe 3-month process between finding.
Private label is very slow, and a lot of people are very impatient. That's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, especially
like if I can
especially
go,
with
if I can literally go to a thrift store and buy 3 things and then have my money back in 14 days.
And it'll give you
can't do that with private label. Private label,
no.
It's going to be a 3 to 6 month process from the time you start researching to the time that product is live and selling.
It will give you that quick win of saying it's exciting the first time you get your first sale.
Oh, it's very
yeah. I still remember those days.
I can't believe it. You sold something on Amazon. Like, you can actually make money, and it validates that you can make money online. For a lot of people, I think,
Guys,
that have tried making money online, never were able to do it before. Here's something that, like, you're not that, affiliate marketing and some of these other things are very challenging, and you'll never make any money in it. Or most people won't. And then you put something up on Amazon, you get a sale, and like, wow, it's the first dollar I made online. If you can make $1 online, you can make $1 million online.
I remember 20 years ago when I first started in arbitrage, I was in school, and I dabbled in arbitrage my whole life. I still do. I haven't sold in a while because of my Amazon law practice was a little busier. But before that, when I worked at GE, I'd always side hustle just for fun. It was like a sport. But I started when I was in law school, and I was just trying to get out of debt. I don't want to have that. I wanted to make money. And it was just flipping DVDs. And it was like the first time I was like, I had 100 DVDs to media mail, and I was blocking up the Philadelphia post office. It was a cool feeling, though, because I just sold 100 people just came to me for these products. And this is back when it was called Z Shops, and I used actually half.com on eBay, which was eBay's version of Amazon that they got rid of.
Yep.
This was single agent, but it's a really empowering feeling when you make that sale, and it motivates you. And I think because we try to reach everybody in the Amazon communities at all levels. So we know a lot of brand owners, a lot of retail arbitragers make that transition. So it's interesting that give them a good place to start is a great thing. So thank you for that, both of you. And Leon, what are your final thoughts in terms of, as we wrap this up? And I have one question after you're done. As far as somebody who's struggling with PPC or thinking about launching, what would you throw into the mix here?
I think you want to, sometimes we get people that come to me and they're struggling and they're like, my PPC is off, or can you help me grow the business? And sometimes it's just, you chose the wrong product. And I feel like you need to understand when to kill products early. If it's an uphill battle and you're 3-4 months into a product, you probably didn't select the product the right way. When I say uphill battle, like, you're not able to generate 5 sales a day, 6 sales a day. In that case, you probably didn't choose. We see a lot of people starting out who don't choose. That's why Brandon offers a product selection masterclass, right? Is like his first thing, because that's the most important thing, is what product are you gonna sell. If you choose the right product, you can be a mediocre marketer and still do okay. If you choose the wrong product, you can be a great marketer and fail. And I think you really want to evaluate that. But yeah, you need to have the mindset that the failures are just there to challenge you if you're ready to be in this space, because everybody in this space has failed. And if you are not willing to fail, then you can't be in the space. And so you just have to know that the failures are a test. If you could be in the club of Amazon sellers, and you have to go through some of that sometimes before you achieve success.
Beautifully said. I like that. I think that's really important that people do. And I like the you're not joking. This isn't just something you say you pin up on a LinkedIn inspirational quote that you have to fail to succeed. No, you really do sometimes just have to be okay with failing on Amazon. And what I think is good is that there are ways to fail in business historically over a period of years. Amazon's probably the cheapest way to fail at the outset. You can learn from your failures very quickly and pivot very quickly.
Paul, you can go to a dollar store, buy a bunch of stuff, create a bundle, okay? Put it under a brand, okay? And go try to sell that. You can make bundles.
Yeah.
Can you still do that, Paul?
Was that? I was kind of like the policy's changed a little bit, but I get what you're saying. Yes, you can do
You know,
bundling.
I see
There is
It's
still
people-
bundling.
it's amazing though. That is a thing. Like you literally buy 3 things that cost you $1 each, and you can sell them for 12 on Amazon
and
and
or
make
you know,
$3 every
I
time
see
it's
people doing branded bundles where they create a
Yeah.
private label carrying case or something for a product. Or
Yeah.
there's somebody in the candy space on Amazon, very successful. They
Yeah.
developed one of their own candies. Okay, everything else is branded around it.
Yep.
And they put it under their brand. I don't know. They've been doing this for years.
It could be a reverse pass off. There's actually, it's funny. There's a court case that just came out where this company called Cloth Zen sued a seller for selling like a piece of cloth, like a, what do you call it, microfiber cloth,
Yeah.
that he bundled with a Dyson hairdryer. So it's like a $600 Dyson hairdryer, but he did it so he could exclusively control the listing, Dyson.
Right.
But it was under Dyson's brand, at least now it is. It may have not have been at the outset, but it's really
Right.
funny. And their lawyers
Dyson
actually
sued him?
But
this company, which is just out of New York, like Choice Electronics, who made the bundle, is suing other sellers who just thought that was the Dyson. They just thought that was the hairdryer. So when they had a hairdryer to sell, they're being sued for infringement in the Eastern District of New York. It's a really funny case. It's
Now they should lose the case because like the
They
microfiber
should,
cloth
yeah.
is not branded, so it's generic.
No,
As long as they had
branded.
the microfiber with the Dyson, then they can be on that because that would there are rules around what you can consider branded versus generic on Amazon.
Right. They have a trademark. It hasn't been registered yet. They have a little trademark thing. They call it Cloth Zen. It's all public record, so we can talk about it. But it's really funny. But it's clearly, I don't know if the Dyson people, if I was Dyson, I'd be like, cut that out. But yeah, the rule is technically you're supposed to, whatever the most expensive item is in the bundle, that's the controlling brand. So if you create a brand and you put 3 things, you're supposed to pick the brand unless your private label product is the most expensive thing and legitimately is like the dominant thing. That's how the policy is meant to work today. Be careful with that because we are seeing an uptick in people using bundles to knock people off.
This is not legal advice.
This is just general talk.
Disclaimer.
The reality is like there's always something you can do out there.
There's always something to do. There's always a way to make money. It's like going to Walmart. And I always said when I was doing it 20 odd years ago, and I was actually Circuit City was where I started because they had this policy where they give you an extra 10% of the price match, and I would leverage that against Best Buy and get an extra 10% off so I can get my costs down. And now they're out of business. Yeah, sorry if that's why. But it's really cool. You can go, and it's like I just said to myself when I did it, I'm like, this could be the most embarrassing return of my life, but I'm going to give this a shot. You know what I mean? You have a receipt, you have a product, you can't sell it. You can always take, some stores have liberal return policies. Walmart's 90 days in a lot of cases. So like the risk level to get started in an arbitrage obviously is very low. And that's the cool thing. But even with private label, you can spend a few $1,000s. I know that's not an easy thing for some people, but when you consider what it used to cost to start a business in like the 90s or the 80s, you pretty much could put your entire life savings into a business like at a high. Whereas with an Amazon store, you can get a little bit, you're still going to lose money, but you're going to learn a lesson. It's probably worth it. And it's not going to be a life-changing amount of money. If you, hopefully not, right? It's going to hurt a little bit, but it's not going to be like, I could have bought a house and now I have a failed business. It's not that level. Hopefully. And thank you to both of you for coming on today and chatting with our audience. And we will be pushing this out to everybody and giving them an opportunity to get to know you guys the way we know you. And we know how people love working with you. And so we were really excited to spread that story, to get that story out there and let people hear from you guys directly. So thanks for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thanks
much
for having us.
Take care, guys.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Have a great weekend.